Jennifer and Kelly. I'm really excited today because I think we're talking about the one thing that agents are struggling with. And so I'm so excited to talk about how we're not sitting on the sidelines. We are truly living something that we preach, an abundance mindset. And so, Kelly, will you let everyone know where are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm Kelly Kellett, and I'm in Clarksville, Tennessee, best market on the planet. And we are expecting a storm, so I want to give everybody a heads up. So it's starting to roll in. So we may, if we lose you, I'm sorry, and they'll run with it. But I'm a real estate agent, a broker, and I own a company called Blue Cord Realty. And we have two sides to that. One is a side for regular real estate. We sell houses. And then another side is we are commercial realtors, work with investors, and also manage investors' properties.
Excellent.
So,
And so I really want to reiterate what Kelly just said. She's working with regular residential buyers, investor buyers, like the investors that work with Agents Invest. And then you also do a lot of commercial deals. And so these are large multifamily properties. I know that our investors, they've bought a 40 unit. I think there was talk of a 60 unit. What other types of commercial properties? Because I think when agents hear commercial, they hear a lot.
um, commercial properties for me are duplexes to complexes. So it can be 2 to 2,000. So it just depends. And then commercial also is strip malls, shopping centers, office buildings, medical offices, that sort of thing. So, um, the one thing about commercial property is that it's if you get the right tenants, they're stable. It's a easy way to generate passive income. So whether
Absolutely.
it's 2 or 2,000, that's the way to go.
Excellent. So I know we have a lot of people that just rolled in. I just wanted to reiterate this is Kelly Kellett, an agent in Tennessee. We have Jennifer Beadles, the founder and broker of Agents Invest, and I'm Sarah Weaver. And today we are talking about how to find off-market properties. You've told us your pain points, you've told us your challenges. Sarah, I have sellers, but they have nowhere to go. I have investors who want to buy, but I can't find anything. If I do find something, it's multiple offer situation. Things are going way over asking. Well, we're here to tell you that that's not what we're experiencing. I'm really confident in what we're teaching because I've seen the results. Our investors at Agents Invest have closed on, let me look at my notes,
Drum roll.
41 properties, 41 properties since January 1st. And we're pending on another 27. And so I don't know about you guys, but our investors are buying because our agents like Kelly and multiple others are finding off market properties. And today we're going to show you how. So this is not going to be your typical Zoom call. I highly recommend you grab a pen and paper. You raise your hand if you have questions, be active in the Q&A. This is not something that you want to sit back and multitask or scroll on your phone. Yep, I see you agents. I know what you're doing. Really, we brought this to you for free because this is the stuff that matters. And I promise you, you can get under contract in the next 7 days if you follow what Kelly and Jennifer are going to teach you. So I'll get off my little soapbox. And without further ado, Jennifer, why don't you start us off with one of your favorite ways to find off market properties?
Yes, yeah. So I have a whole short list. Agents right now, we have to be more creative, right? So there are far more buyers than there are sellers right now, which means that we have to go out and create our own inventory. So the number one way that I have found that's worked best for me is actually within my own database. Now you're probably thinking, well, wait a second, how can I find off-market deals in my own database when my own database are also the ones that are wanting to buy right now? And I'm going to tell you guys this. I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat that are coming in, that are tuning in from high cost of living areas, right? So I'm seeing California, I'm seeing Seattle, Washington. And there's a lot of clients right now that are actually looking to diversify and get into other locations. And a lot of times the best way to do that is actually to do a 1031 exchange and sell a property locally and then go out of state. So we actually have a lot of investors that are looking to do that. And so specifically, we're talking about working with real estate investors, right? And so I am also a real estate investor. I've been a broker for 14 years now. But helping your clients do a local 1031 exchange, potentially off market to get into other markets, is a fantastic way to go. So let me give you an example of that. Why would a seller today want to sell off market? Number one is if anyone has tenants in their property, a lot of times those sellers are thinking, I don't want to disturb my tenants, or I don't want to have a bunch of showings. I mean, let's just use California and Seattle. You put a multifamily on the market, what's going to happen? Buyers are going to be going through the yard. They're going to be looking through the windows. Even if you put in there, don't disturb the tenants, no showings until after mutual. Those tenants, there's going to be some disruption there. And in my experience, having worked with landlords for over 14 years, any opportunity where they can sell a property for top dollar and also not disturb their tenants, they are all for that. I actually was one of those sellers. So last year, I sold a duplex that was fully occupied in Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle, off market to a buyer who had been, so an agent had approached me and they had a buyer that had gotten outbid on, I think, 5 or 6 properties. And they were actually looking for a house hack. And so they were looking to buy a duplex, live in half, and owner occupy, right? Get into the rental situation. And I happened to have a duplex where a tenant was going to be leaving, and they brought me an offer that I couldn't refuse. Had I put it on the market, then I would have had to deal with, again, as a seller, multiple offers. I worked with this agent before in the past. And so I knew that the probability of that agent and that buyer closing on the deal was very high. So for me as a seller, if I can save time and get the price that I'm after, why not? And so I think as agents, sometimes we have this limiting belief that our clients aren't going to want to do off-market sales because they think that it might not generate the highest price. Well, to some sellers, just a quicker close is actually better than potentially getting the highest price. Another example is I had an estate sale. In all of my newsletters, always the question was, would you like to sell your property off market? And so I've had clients raise their hand over the years that said, yes, absolutely. I have 5 dogs in my house. I don't want to cage my dogs and have, home buyers, trotting through and having to, to put the dogs away, if you will. So I've had sellers sell that way. I've also had an estate sale that reached out to me that said, you know what, we're actually kind of embarrassed by the property condition. If you have an investor buyer that is willing to get under contract and actually take the property as is, we would prefer to sell it that way. In that situation, there was 5 heirs and everyone was in agreement at that moment. And so they said, let's strike while the iron is hot, while all of the heirs are in agreement, get this property under contract and do a quick close. So you guys, do not be afraid to put that in front of your database, because 1, you're adding more value to them by offering a service that I would say 99% of agents aren't offering, is an off-market sale. And then number 2, you have that ability to get this off-market inventory in front of your investors that are really wanting to see that right now. So that is my number. I have a ton of different ways, but I would say that by far is my number 1 way, is my existing database.
So there's something I wanted to reiterate. If you are an agent listening to this and you are still going on listing presentations, you should approach every listing in 3 different ways. 1 is, am I going to buy this house? For some of you, you may be in a market or in a place in your life where you're not ready to buy. That's where we get really excited. We'd love to help you get there so that you're thinking about growing your own portfolio. But that should be your first question, is, am I going to buy this? Your second should be to the seller during your listing presentation, do you want to list this property off market? And as Jennifer said, there's lots of different reasons they might say yes. One of them in times of COVID might be that they don't want 100 people through their house. And there's a lot of different markets where those types of open houses aren't even allowed. And so really kind of show them you are what I call a solutions maker to their problems. As a real estate agent, you're really a real estate consultant, and it's your job to consult the client on all the different outcomes. And so sometimes when you go on the MLS and you accept conventional financing, you might not make it to close. And that's pretty painful when that happens. Can I see in the chat box, have you ever had a deal fall through because of financing? Let us know in the chat box. That's really painful. And so you can tell the client that they can avoid that by looking at an all cash buyer, by listing off market. And then the third, when you're at every listing presentation, thanks, Brianna, I got an of course. So when you're at a listing presentation, the third option should be listing the property on the MLS. I can tell you that if a seller is having multiple listing appointments with multiple agents, you're going to stand out. Not every agent is offering to sell their property off market or consulting them with all the different outcomes that can happen. And I really loved this document that I had. It was called like all the turbulence that you could experience on a flight to selling your home with Sarah Weaver. And just telling them all the bad things that could happen up front really helped you down the road when, sure enough, one of those bad things does happen. You can say, yeah, remember, I told you this was going to happen, but I'm a great flight attendant and we're going to get through this. And so I think your sellers will really recognize that you're different. And in today's market, you have to be different or you're not going to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think also to kind of backpedal a little bit, everyone needs to be adding investors to their database. And so while this strategy works, if you just have regular buyers and sellers, because they're going to raise their hand and identify themselves as investors to you. And so you should be marking them as an investor in your CRM once they raise that hand, but you should also be adding investors to your database. So Paul, Sarah, what was it? Paul in our academy added what, 90 investors in the last 2 weeks to his database. Is that right?
So we added 70 investors in 3 days. And then last I chatted with him a couple of days ago, he was up to 95 investors. So that actually brings me, there's some great comments in the chat box. We have John asking, how do you advertise off-market properties if we're trying to limit the amount of showings? And then Anne asks, in order to sell off-market, does the listing agent need to know buyers?
Yeah. So in order to sell off market, I mean, the best way to go is to take some photos of the property. So once the seller agrees that they would like to sell off market, then you need to gather all of the information and then send that to your investor buyers. So investor buyers, it's actually very common for them to buy without having seen the property. And when I say buy, I should say get under contract and then do the due diligence and look at the property. And really that's the benefit to the seller, right? Is that they have a buyer that is ready to buy, that's an investor buyer looking at it from an investment lens, from an investment standpoint. And so again, we're kind of hoping to shift your mindset a little bit from everything that you've learned about traditional real estate and then putting your investor agent hat on. So investors it's very common these days. I mean, I've bought properties sight unseen in cities I've never been to, in cities that I never would have considered because I had the right team in place. And then the first question was, do you need to have investors in your database? Absolutely. So start adding investors to your database, just like you would adding buyers and sellers, right? So lead generation for investors is incredibly important because the more that you do these activities that you're going to learn from us today in this webinar, if you have more investors in your database, you're going to get better results.
So I wanted to talk really quick about, so at the sake of sounding like a commercial for Agent Invest, I wanted to talk about this. So you all are asking, how do I get investors? How do I get buyers? So I've been with Jennifer forever. It seems like what's been 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I mean, I started and I have worked with investors for a very long time, just because for me, it's easier to sell multifamily. But I do want to tell you this, I don't have to prospect anymore and you don't either. So the deal is that, you want to add your own investors and all of that, but they already have all the investors. And so all you have to do is find the property. And so the thing that you said about off-market properties, I mean, my card that I send out says, I don't want to list your property. I'm going to sell it. Call me today, off-market properties. And then I don't have to mark it here. All I do is send it to Agent Invest. And we just did one and I got 22 investors I have never met before, all wanting it. So you have to shift. Like I never go on a listing appointment anymore without thinking, am I going to buy this for myself? And if not, why not? And will this work for an investor? And then I try to shift them from traditional listing to, hey, I can get you a full priced offer where they don't pay any closing costs and no one will ever step foot in your house except for once. And it works every time. It is so different from any other agent that they're going to run into, and they win. Everybody wins in the long run. So being an investor agent is easier, honestly. I mean, I don't have to get up off my chair much at all anymore, which is bad. But I do most of my stuff from the computer and with Agent Invest. And again, I don't want to sound like a commercial, but I mean, I'd say probably, I don't even know how much I've closed with you guys, but I would probably say 75% of my deals, and I did 40 million last year by myself. And so 75% of those deals I did with Agent Invest. What? Right? So
Kelly, tell us, what did your business look like before Jennifer reached out to you on a listing?
it was harder. It really was harder. So, I mean, it's, I listed multifamily and I sold multifamily, and I was like a traditional, I had not changed my mindset. So, I had a full blown property management company, did that. I had a pool of buyers and sellers, but I worked hard. I mean, I really worked hard. And so I don't work so hard anymore. I mean, I find properties, I have people that find properties, and I sit at my desk and I have people that do this too. And we have, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 ways that I find properties, and they come to me. I send it to Agent Invest, and then it's like, here we go. And it's like, we write up the thing. I get off my butt once to go with the, I'm sorry, but I get out of my chair once and I go out to the property and I meet the home inspector, because I'm looking at, we also own a property management company. So the home inspector is doing their due diligence for the investor. And I'm looking at it from a property management perspective. So I'm looking at it like, do we want to keep these tenants? How long is this carpet going to last? Do we need to paint? Do they have Fang the Rottweiler? So I'm looking at something different when I'm out there. And so then the investor or the home inspector gives me their report. I've got my report. We give that to the investor. We either take it or we do something else, and then we close. And I do want to tell you this, never once, ever in 4 years, have I ever had an Agent Invest person not be able to close? Never, ever. And so what happens is that and again, I don't want to sound like an Agent Invest commercial here, but I'm telling you that, like, when I bring an offer to somebody, there could be 40 offers on that thing, and they know we're closing. And so it's like, when they go, oh my God, Kellett's bringing an offer. It's like, people get excited because the investors don't mess around. I mean, they're there to buy.
Absolutely. And there's so many things I want to pull out on what you said, but I think that your reputation in your town really precedes you, because your investors know that when they go under contract, they're not going to nickel and dime during the inspection process, and they're going to make it to close. And so I know that there was a couple people in the chat box that said, of course I haven't made it to close because of financing. This is one of the reasons why I love working with investors, because even me personally, if I can't close conventionally, I have hard money lenders that I can reach out to. I have an all cash option. So I will make it to close, even if it's not the way that I started as an investor. And that's kind of the benefit of working with investment savvy agents, is that they're going to help you make it to close.
And even if there's something about that deal, so let's say that we go in and there's a tick, I don't know, something is wrong with the property and it doesn't quite work with that investor, you're writing it, Sarah Weaver or a signee. And so what happens is that we've already got that. And so now that investor, actually, especially if it's an Agent Invest one, is going to help you try to find somebody else to take that spot. So when we write a deal, short of that falling into a sinkhole, those deals close. We don't lose deals. So
I love it. And so one thing that we talked about off camera was that your job before, and even you mentioned it, that it was harder. And it was harder, just to clarify, because you were looking for buyers and sellers, correct?
Right.
And now how is your business different?
Now our market is hot. And so it's really difficult to find properties, although we've got around that. So, I mean, we're still averaging, probably somewhere between 5 and 10 deals a month, and so even though our market is, I mean, literally like $150,000 house comes on the market and there's like 43, offers on that house, we typically are number one or backup. Now, I want to talk about that. I love being backup. I don't ever get upset when we're backup. And the reason why is they do all the work, it falls apart, and I step in. And so what happened, and that's really what happens. So they're going to take, like we'll give a real offer. So let's say the property's on the market for 500,000. And then somebody comes in and they offer 525,000. Right. And they're not going to have it contingent on the appraisal. They're going to pay $25,000 over, and we're going to go in and we're going to do stuff, and there's paying cash. Well, the agents don't do their due diligence. Suddenly that person isn't really a cash buyer, or they can't get financing, or whatever happens. And they've done all of the home inspections, all of the property inspections. It falls apart. I've kept in touch with that agent the whole time. I've got him on a tickler. Every week I call him, hey, how's it going? How's that? And then what happens is that we will go ahead and we will, I keep saying, we're back up. And then sure enough, they call me and they go, man, the deal fell through. And I'm like, we're in. Do I need to change anything on that other one? We can close in 30 days. Happens every week. I mean, it's amazing how being backup, and I always tell people, don't stress about being backup. You'll get it. It'll happen. So.
Excellent. There are some questions kind of around, how does it work? How are you submitting deals? Does that mean I join Agents Invest? And so Kelly, I think I'd love for Jennifer to answer it, but I'd actually love to hear from your perspective. Tell them kind of how it works. How are you submitting deals to Agents Invest? Because you're not an agent at our brokerage.
How it works is that, I go and I find they have this really handy dandy, and okay, first off, my disclaimer, and Jennifer always gets mad at me when I do this, but I'm not a numbers person. Okay. I can find you the best deal at the best price and make it work. And so numbers to me are like Latin. It's like, I don't cap rate, what, so I've actually learned because of them. So I have this handy dandy, Agent Invest has this handy dandy little, and I'm sounding like a commercial, Lord. Anyway, this thing, and you just plug in the numbers and it automatically like tells you what is the cap rate, what's the cash on cash return, what's the cash on cash return with appreciation, and everything is already in there. I don't have to do anything but plug in like, whatever. And so if it fits a criteria, or even if it doesn't quite fit the criteria, and I'm able to explain why, why you should buy it, even though it doesn't quite fit, then I will send it to Agent Invest. I send them the picture. I send them all of that. I send them a thing that says, like all the particulars. And then it magically, I mean, it's like a unicorn. It magically appears in, I don't know, a billion places. And then all of a sudden, within 10 minutes, I start getting slammed. The only negative is that they always do it. So you guys are 2 hours behind us back there, and it never fails. At 4:45, this hits. And so I'm like totally slammed between 5 o'clock my time and 10. That's the only negative. But it's a bad problem to have, right? So.
Excellent. And so just to clarify, if you're interested in submitting deals, we won't have you. We don't want you to join our brokerage. Stay where you are and just be a referral partner. Agents Invest is a referrals only brokerage. And I'd like to switch gears. And you guys all came to this because you want to hear how to find off market properties. As you can hear from Kelly, she's really good at this. You can say all you want, Kelly, about your use of the calculator and your hatred of numbers. You are a negotiating queen, as well as finding off-market deals. And so can you share with us 2 ways that you find off-market deals? I know that you have a list of 11 there, but let's start with 2.
Okay, so I'm going to do 2 weird ones. Okay, so because you can go online and you can find, how do I find off-market deals? And they'll, there's lists everywhere. So at the sake of sounding like an ambulance chaser, I'm going to tell you that I am friends with lawyers. And so not just title lawyers, divorce lawyers, estate lawyers, that sort of thing. And so if somebody, and you don't want to be a vulture, but if somebody is going through a really bad time in their life, a lot of times on an estate, they don't want people going through, there's lots of heirs. It's an unusual agent that can make everybody come together and agree, right? And so we actually go to the lawyers, and we have cards at lawyers' offices, not for them, but for the lawyers to hand to the client. So if you're going through a divorce and you need to sell, sometimes it's not very amicable. So we can bring an off-market deal. Same thing for estates. There may be, stuff that they've had there for 80 years that they've lived in this house, and it's really not good to show. It shows terrible. It's an older couple. They haven't done their maintenance and all of that. And so that's one of the ways. So attorneys are a wealth of off-market properties. Okay, and I know you're going to think this one's even weirder. Real estate agents. So my number one way of getting off-market properties are real estate agents. I make sure that I network with all of the real estate agents, newbies to oldies. And I go to all of the real estate lunches. I go to the networking. I mean, I am best friends with all the real estate agents because they know what I do. So if they get a property that won't sell for whatever reason, or they're desperate, and real estate agents become investors. So I have a lot of friends that actually sell, but then they'll give me off-market properties because they know I don't care about the listing. I don't want to list it. I just want to sell it. And so, whenever you meet a realtor, just remember that that person could be your next sale. So those are the two that are weird that you wouldn't think about.
I have to agree with you. I was known as the investor agent in my office of 300 agents. And when an agent would get a really ugly property, I mean, agents, right? That doesn't look good, right? Putting something on the MLS that's a hoarder house or practically falling down. And so I would have other agents come to me, and almost as if I was doing them a favor, and really in some ways I was, and they would say, I have a seller that wants to list this really ugly property, but I feel like it would be better sold off market. I don't have a database of investor buyers, but I know you do. Can we work out a deal where you bring the buyer, I'll represent the seller, and then let's do this deal together? So I too, Kelly, I 100% agree with you. I've gotten a ton of off-market deals from other agents. Kelly, I actually think that the last deal that you brought me that was off-market was, it was a conversation that I think you were working with another agent on another deal. And as you're so good at, you asked the agent if they had anything else, and they brought you this sixplex, and then I bought it.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And it was, the agent had sold, they had something, I called and it was already sold. And I'm like, what else you got? And so that's what, that should always be, your tagline that you said was, would you like to sell your property off market? My tagline is, oh, okay, what else do you have? Do you know anybody else that has anything? And it's even agents. And so that's the best way to do it, is just when people think investment property, you want them to think and just all, network, the other thing is networking. So go to the networking, the investor things, go to the networking, even if you don't buy anything or whatever, at least rub shoulders and elbows and get in there with those people, because there's wholesalers, which is the other one. So networking groups typically bring wholesalers, and that's a whole ball of blob in and of itself, but nevertheless, they're there.
And I think one question that we're getting in the chat box is, why would someone sell off market? And so we already touched on the seller that has 5 dogs. We have that people don't want people walking through their homes. But Jennifer, that 6 unit that you bought off market with Kelly, I believe it was an out-of-state investor. The property was in dire need of some repairs, and the out-of-state investor just didn't want to deal with it. They knew that they had some equity in the property. They knew what they could sell it for or what they thought they could sell it for. And so I guess, can you clarify with the people listening that are scratching their heads, in this crazy market, when your property hits the MLS, it's going to get multiple offers. Why would a seller not want that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was an off-market seller last year when I sold my duplex. So I think we have to remember that for some people, saving time and the speed of which a transaction can happen is actually more important to them. And so again, for me, I had this duplex, an agent that I knew really, really well, and I just said, absolutely. They threw out a price, and I said, yep, that works. And so, I mean, in one conversation, we were able to get that deal done versus, bringing in an agent, putting it on the MLS, having to get the photos. And I mean, maybe taking, I don't know, 3-4 days worth of time to kind of get everything ready to put on the MLS, notifying the tenants, dealing with that. I mean, again, for me as a seller, that was a huge benefit to just have one phone call and get the deal done. And then she wrote everything up, and all I had to do was sign it. So again, from the seller's perspective, there's a huge amount of time and then again, just, not having to deal with people trotting through their house. So, but these are the conversations you have to have with your sellers and your clients, right? So we're not here to convince you that you need to convince your sellers to sell off market. We're trying to get you to think differently than a traditional residential agent, which is going to these listing appointments to try to get the seller to be convinced to list their home with you. We're actually, giving you some options to, give them different options for selling the house. One of those being off market.
And also, it's another reason would be depending on your market. So we are primarily FHA VA here. And so a conventional loan is so much easier. So not having to go through the rigorous inspections of VA or FHA versus conventional. So conventional pretty much is as is unless there's a major problem. One of the things that you keep saying is, convincing them to list. And so the cool thing about this is that if you have a pool of investors, you really aren't listing, you're selling. I don't have to market, so you make more money. So you can either you can keep your commission the same, or you can lower your commission, or whatever it is. But it's like you don't have. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if somebody calls me and says I've got a quad that I want to sell, or I'm thinking about selling, I don't try to list that property. I give it to Agent Invest. I have a buyer. I call them up and I say, hey, I have an offer for you. Are you ready to go? And then you get that. So it's not just about trying to get like the listings, because you have a pool of buyers to get the listings. So you actually have the buyers before. And with our market now, you have to have the buyers to get the listings, I think, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm absolutely seeing that shift in that direction, Kelly. I 100% agree. And I think, again, there's just more value to a seller when you can tell them that if the price is right, then you will absolutely sell that property. And then they're only paying one commission, they're only dealing with one agent, right? And so there's some benefits to the seller for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And my question about talking to real estate agents without sounding like you're trying to poach a deal. And so, Kelly, I'll let you chime in, but I think what I want to illustrate is that some real estate agents have properties, but they don't have the access to an investor database like you do. And so I think what happens is this limiting mindset that why would a real estate agent share an off-market property with me? What value do I have to bring? Well, the value that you guys have to bring, even those of you listening, is that we're inviting you to send properties to our investor database, or better yet, we're also inviting you, we'll teach you how to have your own investor database. And so there's a lot of agents out there that are great at finding off-market properties, or they have a connection and they just get a one-off off-market every once in a while, but not always does a real estate agent have both. And so it's really easy, Michael, for you to talk to a real estate agent. You're not trying to poach that deal. If it's their deal, they sure as heck get paid for it because we don't work for free. So they're going to get a listing commission. But because, Michael, you're going to bring the buyer, you're going to get a buyer commission, and you've just created a win-win for that agent. And so I think I can hear in the language that you're using, I mean, poach a deal is just the wrong mindset. Kelly, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I was processing that, poaching a deal. So, so I'm a weird one in that I really don't like to be in the middle. I prefer to represent the buyer or the seller, but I really prefer to represent buyers. And so, you know, you're not taking away from somebody, you're bringing value. So what, okay, for you agents, you have to know that what you do is value. I mean, you're not poaching, you're making their life easy. And so, so if you go to somebody and you say, hey, do you have a listing or you have an off-market deal that's you know, a real estate agent, and you have a buyer, you're making them look good. And you explain that. So it's like, you know, before they even get that thing listed, they've got a contract in their hand, and I let them have all the glory. I don't care, because my glory comes from my investors and them knowing that I got them something that didn't hit the market. And so it is not poaching. It is you are a great negotiator. You are working off market properties. You are doing what 99.9% of all the other agents don't know how to do or won't do. And so you are bringing value to every other agent that you work with, because your stuff closes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions in the chat box, but before I get to it, I think it's safe to say everyone would like another reason or another way to find off-market properties. And so Jennifer or Kelly, whoever wants to jump on it first, will you guys share one more way you find off-market properties?
Yeah, so I love Craigslist for rent listings. So I look for owners that are self-managing. So obviously you can exclude any property management company, any professional property management company, because they are not the decision maker there. However, we do recommend that you network with property managers in a different way. But Craigslist for rent, you guys, is fantastic. So hire a VA. Do not do this yourself. This is a $3-4 an hour task. Hire a VA to scrub Craigslist in your market area. Find those multifamily properties that are being up for rent, that are listed up for rent for a direct owner, for sale, or I'm sorry, for rent by owner, and throw those into your dialer. So I like Mojo Sells as a dialer, and call those people up and see if they would entertain an offer. So again, not a listing. You don't want to say, would you like to list your property? If they would entertain an offer, an off-market offer from one of your investor buyers, and start having conversations with people that are listing their properties for rent. You guys, there's a lot of tired landlords out there right now. I would say that the majority of the deals that I've bought recently have been tired landlords. So COVID-19, you guys, has really kind of thrown us all for a loop. But in some areas, we have landlords that are, 55 and older. They're not able to kind of keep up with everything that's changing. And I would say have owned their properties for years and years, and they're ready to make a change. And so, but they don't know, a lot of them are really close with their tenants. And so again, they don't want to necessarily kick the tenants out in order to sell. I had a conversation yesterday with a potential off-market seller, and she said, oh, but I feel so bad kicking my tenant out. And I said, well, why would you kick your tenant out? And she said, well, I thought that I would have to kick my tenant out in order to sell it. And I said, absolutely not. When you're selling to another investor, they actually want the tenant in there. And so, Craigslist for rent, you guys, sellers, fantastic opportunity to find off-market sellers with Craigslist for rent.
And for those of you that aren't savvy with the lingo tired landlord, it really is just anyone that owns property that might be open to selling. And you would be really surprised. A lot of landlords have no idea what their properties are worth. And then I really like the adjective tired, because I'm in a lot of investor Facebook groups, one in particular that I love. And they often are like, guys, like, I think I want to sell. And then it's so fun because you see a bunch of comments that are like, well, I'll buy. And so you get a lot of people, especially in this market, that they're like, wow, I'm sitting on a lot of equity. And like, I don't know that I can bump rent up much more. And so, yeah, I think I would be ready to entertain an offer, but I'm not going to go through listing the property. I probably need to update the kitchen, clean the carpets, notify my tenants. And so they won't actually go as far as listing on the MLS, but they might entertain an offer from your client. And so I particularly love this strategy. I actually get phone calls all the time, and I only own 2 properties. So I can only imagine, Jennifer, how many calls you and Travis get of people wanting to buy your rentals.
I mean, calls, text messages, postcards. Yeah. And actually, I have another friend of mine. She has 130 units in Wisconsin. And she was like, you know what? I have agents reaching out to me. And to be honest, I would do business with them if they could bring me another deal. And I said, whoa, Anne, wait a minute. I said, you would sell your property off market if that agent brought you another deal? And she said, absolutely. Everything is for sale. And she's like, but what's interesting, all these agents, they're focused on just the property that they own. If they shifted what they pitched to me and said, hey, I can help you sell your property off market and find you another off market deal, because obviously that's what they're doing in their lead generation, to do a 1031. And she said, if they change that, they would get 2 sales. They could sell my property off market, and then they could get the sale on the next property. And again, I think sometimes as agents, we think so transactional, and we want to start thinking relationship, right? Is how can you work with one client that buys 5 to 10 properties a year versus 5 to 10 properties that buy 1 property every 7 years. And that's the biggest difference, I think, between working with a traditional residential client versus an investor. An investor, you continue to add value, they're going to buy multiple properties every single year.
On that, I just wanted to, I mentioned to you that we have property management as well. And I can tell you this is that, the investors, the agent investors, all of the investors, but primarily agent investors, they buy multiple properties. We just had a conversation today with one of the people from Seattle, and he reminded me that as of today, they have 10 doors, and I've only been working with him since August. And so, and he's like, let's go. We just closed on this one. What's next? Where are we going? Type deal. And so that's one of the things. It's like when you work with residential, you are always out there looking for the next buyer. When you work with investors, your buyers are right there. And so you'll find that even if they're like, I'm done, right? I'm done. I'm good for a minute. And you have a deal. It's like suddenly they're not so done anymore. And you don't really.
I feel like I've said that to you before. And then you.
Yeah, I know. It's like, we're just going to travel. Yeah. And it's like, but wait. So, and you too, Sarah. So, I mean, it's like, it's just one of those things where, an investor is never done because it's not emotional. And so it's all about money. It's all about cash flow. It's all about that. And so once you get a stable of investor buyers, you're set.
Absolutely. Ladies, I'm keeping an eye on the time. I'd like to give them one more way to find off-market deals and also get to a lot of these questions. And so let's just kind of rapid fire through some of these questions, and then we'll share one more way to find off-market deals. I also want to cover, I'm getting questions in the chat about how you can send deals to agents invest like Kelly, and how you can convince, I like that word, convince your buyers to sell off market, or sorry, your sellers to sell off market. So before I touch on those, Katrina's asking, I have a landlord that wants to sell, but can't remove tenant. How do you present it to investors, Jennifer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the question would be, is the tenant paying? I assume not. And so I think the conversation with the seller is that's going to be the next buyer's problem, right? So you're solving the problem for your seller by selling them off market and bringing them a buyer, but they also need to be realistic that the next buyer or the new buyer is going to have to solve that problem, right? And so that goes into the property management side. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
So actually the tenant is paying. She just messaged us. Oh. So this sounds like a great opportunity.
Yeah, so send it to us.
Where?
Yeah, Katrina, where are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just made the, no. So again, let's put our investor agent hat on. So you have a tenant that's paying in a property. Exactly. That is exactly what an investor is looking for. So absolutely, Katrina, ding, ding, ding. You you found an off-market deal with a occupied property with the tenant paying. Fantastic. So now the next step is selling that deal, right?
Absolutely. Katrina, do you have any questions about how to list that property with your investors? I'm happy to bring you on. Let's go through this. Sounds like a really great opportunity. I'm trying to find you in the chat box. You don't have to be on camera, but do you want to tell us any more, or I guess what's keeping you from sending this out to your database?
Well, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so this property was brought to me a few weeks ago, and I'm a new agent, by the way, so all of these things are wonderful. I want to learn more, but the property was brought to me a couple of weeks ago. With the COVID rules, they're unable to remove the tenant until summer. And this property is a property that we really should be listing right now because it's got a pool. It's great for a summer listing. But I never even considered an off-market listing. I was considering putting it on the MLS because things are going like crazy with multiple offers over asking. So listing off market wasn't something that I ever considered until I got the email a couple of days ago and decided to join this meeting. So I have several investors in my database. So I mean, I have the option, but I haven't talked to the seller about putting it on an off-market listing. Of course, they want to get top dollar, but if they can sell it now and not even have to worry about getting their tenant out, and they could sell it right now, this is like an opportunity that is something I want to present to them, but I don't really know how to go about the steps of, should I be presenting this to my investors now and then talk to them and say, hey, this is what we can do to sell it now, instead of waiting until August when they can get their tenant out and put it on the MLS. Is that clear? Is my question clear?
So Katrina, I would give them both options. This is what it would look like if we wait until the tenant moves out. And then keep in mind, seller, you're probably going to have to do something to the property. I've never owned a property where the tenants left and it was list ready, right? So they're going to have to probably do something to the property. Oftentimes, that means, an interior paint or, some cleaning, right? So give them option one and then run the numbers, Katrina, to see what it would look like for an off-market sale, right? So you want to, run a return analysis to see if it makes sense for an investor, depending on your market. Even if the deal doesn't have a high cash-on-cash return, if you have that list of investors, it doesn't hurt to put it out in front of them. But I would absolutely have that conversation with the seller first. Give them the option, because what you don't want to do, Katrina, is you don't want to get your investors all excited and then have the seller say, no, I really do want to wait until the tenant moves out to sell it, because then you don't want to be known to your investors as someone who presents deals and then takes them back. So have that conversation with the seller first, give them both options, let them decide which option they want to go with, and then proceed from there.
Okay.
Kelly, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think it's important. I know that the COVID thing is happening, and we're really fortunate here. We don't have to wear masks here in Tennessee, but so depending on where you're at, I mean, remember I said that we go in and we do kind of like an analysis as far as carpeting, painting, blah, blah, blah. So you could talk to the seller and find out, when was the last time it was painted? When was the last time it had carpet? How old are the appliances? And price those. So when you're comparing apples to apples, so we'll do easy numbers, because remember my number thing. So let's say you put it on the market at $250,000, and that's top end. And that's if everything is perfect and, multiple offers, right? But then you have to think about so if you have to replace carpet, if you have to, do repairs, if you have to do whatever. So let's say that now you're at 25,000 putting it in there. So that means theoretically it's all about the bottom line, right? So it's not insulting. The bottom line is the issue. So now you're at 225. So if the investor is willing to pay closing costs, then you take that off. And so it depends on your market, but theoretically a $250,000 listing could be reduced to, 210, 215 based on repairs, closing costs, all of that. And so if you're comparing apples to apples, it might be just as competitive for them or just as good to take an offer now as it would when they got the tenant out. And again, that investor is going to want that tenant unless it's really under rented. And there's ways around that too. I mean, you can get past an under rented, house type deal.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely hasn't been updated. But the market right now, if I was to put it on the MLS, I could easily list it at 535. But that would be without doing any updates. If I do $20,000 in updates, I could probably get 550 for it or more. And with this market, I'm in California. So this market, there's properties going with 100 offers, way over asking right now. So that's the thing that is making this not sure what to do. But I will run the numbers and present it to them and see if it's something they're interested in. And I can contact one of you, because I have a few investors, but I have like 5. So comparatively to what I think that I'm hearing from you, you have a lot more than that. So maybe I can reach out to Jennifer after this call and we can talk more.
I love it. Jeff, I love your comment in the chat.
I know, I like to show. I was like,
maybe they don't want to deal with 100 offers that may fall through investors close.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, Katrina, I applaud you. I'm really impressed that you're a new agent. You have 5 investor clients and an off-market deal. We would love to help you. And that kind of brings me to my next point. So I wanted to bring Katrina on to give you guys a little bit of a taste of what Jennifer and I do every month. So we started a coaching program for real estate investors who want to work with, real estate agents who want to work with investors. And what it looks like is a coaching call just like what we did. And so if you're interested, we meet 3 times a month. And in addition to that, we have a forum. Paul, you're on the call. You do a really good job of keeping me on my toes, asking me questions, and let us know in the chat if I do a pretty good job of getting back to you in real time. We want to make ourselves available to you because we see the results. And without getting too woohoo, I think that this is really powerful. I mean, Kelly, I love hearing that you're working less because I also see the lives that you're touching. And so I just think that Jeff is in this call and Jeff Wilkinson. And I just think not only can we change your life, but then think of all the investors that you're going to turn around and work with. And I just think that that's really powerful. And so if you guys are interested in this coaching, it is $297 a month. I want it to be attainable for all real estate agents, even ones that are brand new. Everyone on this call can afford $297, and it's 3 calls a month. The forum is available to you. Thanks, Paul. He said the last time you called back, you were in the middle of a run. Yep, I was out of breath giving him my coaching advice while huffing and puffing. Running is like a generous term of what I was doing. I was walking, and so we want to make this available to all of you. And so we call it the Investor Agent Academy. Jennifer will drop a link in the chat box on how you can sign up. Our next coaching call is April 6th. So you have about a week to sign up. I would actually encourage you to sign up today so that you can get the roadmap to what we're going to teach you in the coaching calls and you can ask questions. One thing I want to make really clear about the roadmap, we've just spent 56 minutes together. We will probably pass an hour, even though we try really hard to make these calls an hour. And what I made really important on these roadmap videos is they're 4 minutes long, because I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty zoomed out. I don't want to sit in another hour course. You guys are busy real estate agents. Frankly, you should be out there looking for deals. So we made these videos 4 minutes long. I think one of them is 7. That's our longest video. Because what I want you to do is I want you to carve out an hour, watch the 4-minute video, and then, like Paul, take action. And so he watched the 4-minute video and then got 70 investors added to his database within 3 days. He just asked us how to represent a deal that he found from networking with a wholesaler. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a $9 million package. That commission payday is going to feel really good. And he just joined the academy last month. And so if you're sitting on this call, 102 properties, thanks, Paul.
Job.
It's incredible. And so I really believe in what we're doing, and I want you guys to be a part of it, even if you're a new agent or an experienced agent. So if that's of interest to you, please join. And then next, I have a lot of people in the chat box asking, how can we submit deals? So I'll put the link in the chat box, but Jennifer, can you let us know, what are you looking for in agents who submit deals to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So the deal has to make sense from an investment standpoint. And so what that means, so the majority of the investors that we work with, they are looking for value add, meaning that there's room to add value to the property, either through rent increases, maybe the condition is poor. And so by improving the condition, they can generate higher rents. We actually, you guys, if you want to hang out with us again tonight in 3 hours, we are doing a case study example from an investor that we helped him go from, let's say, 22 units to, I think he's at 130 right now. And he's going to be doing a case study example on a 42 unit that actually Kelly had brought to us, and we brought it to him. And you guys, he's making over $1 million on this one deal. And so anyways, so we're looking for value add properties where there's room to increase the rents, and there's also a higher cash on cash return. So in most markets, we're looking for an 8% cash on cash return or higher. In some markets like the West Coast, Colorado, California, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, we will revise that a little bit down to 6%. And if you guys are thinking, wait a second, I have no idea what cash on cash is, I have no idea how to even calculate that, then you need to be in the academy, because that is what we're covering the entire month of April. So we're going to teach you how to find these deals. We're going to teach you how to quickly analyze them. And when I say analyze, I mean like in a minute deal. And so, so we're looking for 8% cash on cash, 6% and maybe some hotter markets, value add opportunities. Anyone that has new construction is very popular. Kelly, you sold, I don't know what, 15 or 20 maybe off market new builds last year that were fourplexes. Again, fantastic deals. So everyone won. The builder got all of his properties sold out pre-sale. Kelly was able to get the commission, and then all of our investors were able to get into new construction properties. So really, at the end of the day, guys, what we're looking to do is create win-win for everyone. We want you guys to build up your commission income so that you can create consistent income, so that eventually you can go over to our ROI Inner Circle and become an investor yourself. And then we want to help you guys build your income streams along the way. I would say on average, the agents that we work with, they do an extra, right? So this is in addition to their regular commission income, they do an extra 6 figures a year. And so again, we would love to help you get into this. But yeah, you can apply to become an agent partner. It's agentsinvest.com/agents. Have a conversation with Sarah. Sarah does all of the follow-up on that, and see if it's a fit for us to create a referral relationship. Again, we have no age. I mean, myself and Dina, who works for us, we're the only 2 agents in Agents Invest. We have no desire to be a brokerage where we have agents hanging their license under us. That is not our business model. We want you to stay absolutely where you are. We don't want you to turn off your residential business. We want you to add investor business to your existing business and do an additional 6 figures a year. So we can help you by teaching you how to work with investors if you don't already know how. If you do understand the investment side, then submit deals to us and let's help you close more deals.
Absolutely. So I put the link in the chat. It's agentsinvest.com/apply. It is free to be an agent, what we call an agent partner, a referral partner of ours. You do not have to be in the coaching. we would like you to be. I think it pairs really well together. You're going to see more results, but it's absolutely free. Jennifer, I'm seeing some chat that people are actually investors and not agents. Where do they go? What do you have for them?
Amazing. Well, you guys, you're in our agent off-market deal webinar today. If you guys want to receive these off-market deals from all of the agents that we work across the country, you guys need to be inside the ROI Inner Circle. Guys, it's less than $150 a month. We've had investors inside the ROI Inner Circle partnering with each other. We have an investor that had a $35 million rental portfolio that wanted another investor to partner with him to move out of state. And you guys, within the first 30 days, they created a partnership. We have 2 other investors who are from 2 totally different markets that are now partnering to do deals in other states as well. So if you're looking to really fast track and scale up your personal rental portfolio, then the ROI Inner Circle is for you. So again, if you're an investor here learning about the ways that agents find off-market deals and you want access to that and you want access to other markets, then the ROI Inner Circle is designed exactly for you. We have, I think 3 of our investors actually quit their full-time jobs and became full-time investors with us last year. So, which is just really exciting to see people graduate from, I guess, working full-time and working on their rental portfolio to going full-time working on their rental portfolio. So we're so proud of that. But yeah, any investors, we would love to have you guys in there and we would love to help you build and scale your rental portfolio.
Excellent. Carrie Ann, I love your comment. She means it. She turned me down. So Jennifer turned me down when I asked to join her brokerage. She encouraged me to open my own. I did it and I'm in. Talk to you in 30 minutes, Sarah. So Carrie Ann is in the Agent Academy and I have a call with her this afternoon. And then Grace is asking, Jennifer, will you teach more about finding off-market deals inside the Academy?
Yeah, I actually private messaged Sarah and I said, Sarah, I have like 7 other ways to find off-market deals. We're going to have to do that. We're going to have to cover this on our next Academy call because you guys, we barely scratched the surface today. And so absolutely, we will cover those in our next April call. So again, April is going to be all about how to analyze these deals that we're talking about and then how to find them. So we'll cover that on our next call. I also have a lot, you guys, inside the Academy. We need to start talking about P&Ls and making sure that your business is maximized from a financial standpoint. So we're going to have a busy April in there, guys. But again, all of this is designed to help you guys make more money, to have more free time so that you can eventually invest in real estate yourself.
Excellent. And Josh, I saw your comment. We will start a thread inside the Academy forum all about starting your own brokerage. And so excellent. I think people are asking for me to send them the link for tonight's call. I'm like scrambling trying to find it. And so I'll email that out to you, Deep. If there's anyone else that wants it, just PM me.
Let me grab it here really quick.
Okay, thanks. I've been scrambling. I can't find it. Sorry. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about is like, why work with investors? And so Kelly, while we have you on the call, can you kind of describe to me what a typical week looks like for you as an agent that specializes in working with investors?
Okay, so one of the things I was thinking, typical week. Okay. Well, one of the things is that, everybody's talking about how do I open up my own brokerage and how do I do whatever. And so I want to tell you that, I have a brokerage and I have a property management company and we work with investors. And so I couldn't do all of that if I was just a residential agent. I couldn't make 6 figures. If I wasn't working with investors. So what my week looks like is, one of the things that happens with agents is that again, we train agents and everything. So what happens is that you get bogged down in non-income producing activities. So I do want to let you know that, you can work on stuff, and Jennifer's helped me with this a lot because sometimes I get bogged down in paperwork and it's like, you're not doing what you really need to do. And so, my typical day is 3 hours a day I put aside for income producing activities. And so I am calling and I'm talking and I'm networking and I'm doing those things. The rest of the day belongs to whatever blows up and goes on. So really about 3 hours a day is all I'm spending at this point finding deals. And so, again, you have to learn to use everybody else. I'm only working 3 hours a day finding deals, but all of the real estate agents that I'm networking with, they're killing themselves bringing me those deals, and the investors and the networking people. And so all I'm doing is calling. It's like having a brokerage where everybody else is selling the deals and you're taking a portion. So what I've done is I've gone out and now I have, we have, I don't know, 1,500 agents in Clarksville. So I have 1,500 agents working for me that I don't have to manage. And they're bringing me deals. And then I have the networkers and the wholesalers and whatever. So my week, as far as investors, are 3 hours a day. I'm making calls saying, hey, remember me? You got anything for me? How's the family? And it's just kind of hanging out, and then it just comes. So you don't really want to know about the rest of my week. That's the good part.
Kelly, what I love is we've actually now trained your admin and sometimes submit deals as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's really, let's see, Kelly, you and I were in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
You were in Austin, Texas. And I look at my phone and I'm like, oh, Kelly, you just submitted a deal to us. And you said, oh, I did.
And so that's, one of the things that is really important is, so once you get, I don't even know how to put this. So anybody can submit a deal, right? So the part that is getting the deal. So that's, if you're an investor agent, that's where you need to concentrate. So remember the income producing activities. So I have an assistant that analyzes all the deals and sends them out. And then she actually writes the contracts as well. I go over them, making sure that they're all right. And then I do all of the feel good. So I'm talking to the investors, I'm talking to the agents, I'm making sure that the deals are working and all of that, but all of the back end is done by someone else. And so we literally can do 5 to 10 deals a day, because she's doing them, I'm presenting them, and it's just a well-oiled machine. We also have property management. So property management analyzes the rentals so that we can do that. So, having your own company or, as we joke, making a property manager your best friend, which was something that we did previously, having all the parts moving. I mean, my life is so much simpler now than it ever was, because I'm in control, but I'm not in control, if that makes sense.
I know you guys aren't on video, those of you attending, but can I get a yes if you want your life to be simpler? So speaking of submitting deals, I have to shout out to Carrie in Colorado Springs. I got a hell yes. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Jean. So I have to shout out to Carrie. She actually submitted a deal to us while on this call. And so thank you, Carrie. Carrie, we really want to see more deals from you. Your market is hot. Our investors are asking for it. So let us teach you how to find more off-market properties. I call out Carrie specifically because she actually just joined the Academy. And Carrie, I think it's safe to say, I don't think that you've logged in yet. And so let's see you in there. I would like to see you on the April 6th coaching call. We're excited to have you in the Academy. We're excited to have you submitting deals. I'd like to see more of them. And so would our investors. And so great job. I'm really proud of you.
There are a lot of questions and stuff there. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that that's why, is because there's not a lot of people talking about this. I hear a lot of chatter that frankly, I think is scarcity mindset. And I know nobody wants to hear that, like, oh no, I'm abundance mindset. But are you abundance mindset if you're thinking, oh, there's no deals, or oh, my sellers don't have anywhere to go? We can solve that. We can show you how to find off-market properties and get things moving. And so I'm really encouraged that there's so many of you that's made it an hour and 10 minutes on this call. It tells me that you want to hear about this information and you want results. And so we'd love to be a part of your journey. I don't know how I can reiterate it again. We'd love for you to join the Academy. If you're an investor, join us tonight for our free event. We will go ahead and wrap things up. If you want the list of how to find off-market properties, we will have that inside of the Academy. Paul, hold me accountable, make sure I post it in there. And everyone, thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly, for coming on. We're really excited to see what agents can do using the information that you've shared.
Thank you. But I do want to say, everybody, you should join tonight. So Cody Touche is who they're talking about. And he is, if you're networking, that's your guy. So no matter where you're at as an agent, he finances, he's a mortgage company person, and he actually finances probably 80% of all of my deals, except for the big ones. So at quad and below. So I want to encourage you to listen to him. So not only is he an amazing investor, a great guy, but he's a really good person to have in your little pack of arrows, your arsenal, because he can make stuff work. And so I want to encourage you to join tonight, whether you're an investor or an agent, because you're going to learn a lot from Cody.
Thanks, Kelly. Well, everyone, we will see you tonight. If you need anything, my email is sarah@agentsinvest.com. I know there's been a lot of links thrown in the chat box. Email me if you need something. Carrie, keep submitting deals, and everyone else will see you on April 6th for our next coaching call inside the Academy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Kelly.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, everyone.